Hi, welcome everyone. Welcome to Nordregio and the webinar, New Perspectives on Higher Education in Nordic Rural Areas. Today we'll discuss the benefits, challenges, and different ways to establish and develop attractive educational institutions in smaller cities and rural areas in the Nordic region. My name is Anne Berlina, and I will moderate this webinar today together with my colleague Jonas Kachkus-Tubieg, who will host Zoom chat and polls. This event is part of Nordregio's research project EDYNORA, where we explore education and youth perspectives in Nordic rural areas, and it's financed by the Nordic Council of Ministers. We will begin with an overview of the latest research and some findings from the EDYNORA project, and then we'll continue with presentations on practical examples of peripheral education in Åland, Denmark, and Norway. This webinar will be recorded, and you will receive a link and presentations after the webinar. So please join the chat and Zoom polls, share your thoughts, experiences, and post your questions. So now over to you, Jonas. Let's get started.
All right. Before our first keynote speaker, let's get to know each other. I will post a poll right now, and please choose the right answer. Where are you from? Are you from one of the Nordic countries, or are you maybe outside of the Nordic countries, in Europe or outside of Europe? Let's just wait to see how many people will vote. And while we do so, I would also like to invite you to subscribe to the Nordregio newsletter, which you can find on our website, nordregio.org. All right, I can see most of you have voted already. 86% have voted. And as we can see, most of you are joining from Denmark, as well as some from Norway, Sweden, actually most of the Nordic countries, as well as some people from another country in Europe. So not only Nordic are viewers today. Yes, let's see. The next question is, what type of institution do you represent? Is it an educational authority, a higher education institution, a research institute, a municipality or a region, or something else? All right, let's wait a few minutes, a few seconds, until everyone has had the chance to vote. And as we can see, most of you are from a higher education institution. Others are also representing a municipality or region, and quite a lot of you, like 26%, are from another area. And the last question, let me just launch it. The last question is, what are you most curious about today in the webinar? Is it how to establish peripheral higher education institutions? Is it how to attract or retain young people in rural areas? Or you're simply interested in the newest research on the topic, or maybe perhaps something else? All right, last people are casting their votes. All right, I will end the poll now. And as we can see, most of you are actually interested in the newest research on the topic, but almost the same amount are also interested in how to attract and retain young people in rural areas. All right. Thank you for this introductory, and over back to you.
Thank you, Jonas. Let's get to our first speaker. I would like to welcome Eva Maersk. Eva works with us at Nordregio, so she's a research consultant, and she also holds a PhD in education and mobility choices of young adults. Please, Eva, what does research tell us on education in peripheral areas? Over to you.
Thank you. Then I'll just mute my slides. And thank you everyone for joining today. Yes, as Anna and Jonas also mentioned, I'm an external consultant here at Nordregio. My PhD was in how do young people move to and from rural areas specifically, and specifically under education. And now I continue this work in EDYNORA. I'll give you just an overview of the latest research on this topic, both within the formal research, but also the grey literature, all of the reports that are being produced in the Nordic countries. And then I'll give you a little bit on the early findings from EDYNORA. I can control the screen. Hope I can. There, good. Yes, so in EDYNORA, we are very interested in this broader topic of how do we maintain young people in rural areas specifically, and how do we do this through education? What role does education play? In the broader context that we're looking into this problem in, that is that at the moment we see an increasing number of educational reforms across the Nordics. We see great both centralizing and decentralization trends. We're trying to solve this issue of we are lacking young adults and we are lacking labor force in the rural areas, and we try to do this with different policy reforms. Some of them is decentralization of higher education. We see a decreasing number of young people. We have fewer young people all over the Nordic countries, but especially in rural areas. And we see in general, both in the Nordics but also in Europe, a change in higher education, in the higher education mission and function. It's not only research that needs to be produced anymore. We are also thinking that the higher educations in general should produce something to the local labor market. And what we see, at least now in EDYNORA, is we see a lot of gaps of knowledge, gaps of data, and we have very much a lack of comparative systems across the Nordics. That is, to some degree, a result of these decentralization and centralization trends, with a lot of new institutions emerging, but also are being clustered together. This is just a sneak peek of some of the maps that we will present in more detail in our policy brief in a couple of weeks. We're aiming to get both an overview of the peripheral higher education institutions in the Nordic. We are basically excluding the bigger cities, and then we're focusing on the periphery, where how are the different institutions distributed. That's the first map. We also look into what is the amount of students in the different institutions and how are they distributed across the Nordics. And we also look into the historic part of this. Where do we see a lot of new campuses being established? Why do we see them, and what are they trying to, what are their goals, what are their success criteria? But at the moment we see that we don't have this knowledge, and we think that if we have these comparative systems established, we can actually learn a lot from each other across the Nordic countries. And our goal is, how can we establish and develop these attractive areas of education in smaller cities and rural areas, so that they are not all of them just moving into the big urban cities? But to do this, we also need to know, what do we already know about how young people's educational choices? How do we know what do we know about these in the context of rural and peripheral areas? Most of what we know is kind of depressing. We know that mostly young people leave, but we also know that young women especially are leaving the rural areas. We know that the higher grades a young person has, the higher chance they have of leaving a rural area. We know that they associate mobility with success. Staying is not cool. And we know that they associate rural areas with boring places or uncoolness. But we also know that rural youth will be much higher educated than their previous generations, which is a problem in itself. So how do we try to approach this? We establish peripheral education institutions, but they are not being filled up. In most of the Nordic countries, we can see that peripheral institutions lack students. So we are also looking into who are the students who are actually choosing for these specific places that we are trying to establish. We know that the students that are choosing specifically for the peripheral education, that they usually come from the rural or the local region. We can see on other research, but we're also actually confirming that in our own, that proximity plays a significant role in how young adults choose. We know that they're often older and they might have kids when they enroll in an education. We know that they prioritize actively smaller cities. And we also know that they are often non-traditional students. And in general, that if we are painting the picture here in EDYNORA of when you are a peripheral education, if you are not an education which are located in the capital area or in a core urban area, there are several parameters that we need to navigate. We know that the peripheral education usually have a very diverse student body, both low grades and high grades, but also a very broad student body. We know that there's a very limited recruiting pool of local youth to attract. We know that a lot of peripheral educations are trying to skill match with the local labor market. What will we need in the future? We know that we have difficulties attracting economic resources and employees. A lot of research going into this. And we know that the peripheral institution is often measured on multiple parameters on local and regional and national level. On national level, they are competing with the other higher education institutions, but on a local level, they are responsible for, for instance, educating local labor force. It's two very different ways of measuring success. We know that they have potentials for innovation, and that most of our satellite institutions are doing this very well. But we also know that they should match their programs with with the local labor market, and planning for this. What will the region and the local labor market need in the future is very, very difficult to match. So of course, a lot of different peripheral institutions are doing this and are trying to find a way to balance all these different parameters. Some of them are, for instance, doing hybrid or online solutions. But as one of the people in our focus group said, it is essential for small localities to preserve a campus, a tangible place where individuals can come together. Such environments are vital as they often serve as the birthplaces for development projects and as incubators for generating insights into regional development. And we thought that this quote was really essential to how we think we should plan for the local campus. So with this encouragement, we will go over to the other speakers and hear how you do it.
Thank you. Thank you, Eva. Thank you for this overview and sharing some preliminary findings from the project. We have a bit of time for one question for you. I've been wondering if there have been any surprising findings in your research so far, or perhaps some challenges that you've encountered.
I think two different things. I think usually an interesting finding was that when we're trying to attract students to the higher education institutions, we think that we are attracting the students that are going into the big urban cities, and we try to talk to them. But actually what I can see from my research is the students who are going for the peripheral institutions really like them and are actively choosing for them. So we need to talk and speak directly to them. And an interesting part is it looks like we're trying to organize these peripheral institutions a little bit on the fly. And we're doing a lot of nice innovation, which I think is the interesting part of what we will look into within the next 5 years.
Yes, and if you have some questions to Eva, perhaps you could post questions to the chat, and Eva will try to answer you the questions during the webinar. And now it's time to move over to our next speaker, and I would like to invite Bo Nygård from Åland. Bo is a special advisor on higher education at Landskapsregering, the government of Åland. And he has also previously worked at Åland University of Applied Sciences, so different perspectives to share with us. So Bo, what are the key insights from your work with higher education in Åland? Please, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to speak at this webinar. As mentioned, I work at the government since May this year, and before that I was 10 years at the University of Applied Science as head of unit. Today I represent the owners. So using we during this presentation can, depending on the situation, either mean the university or the government. Confusing? Yes, I think so, but please try to bear with me. There we are. Let's start with some basics. You probably already know where Åland is situated in the Baltic Sea between Stockholm and Åbo, or Turku in Finnish. There are good communications with airplanes and ferries towards the east and west. The images there is from the campus south and the campus north, and you see also our beautiful flag. Something about the university in brief. The university was founded in 1997 by the Åland provincial government as a cooperative network for vocational higher education with a right to award polytechnical diplomas. In January 2003, the Åland University of Applied Science became a permanent institution when it merged with the Open University, which was my area when I worked there. And after the fusion, its Swedish name was changed to Högskolan på Åland, as we know it today. But some people like to think that 1854, when the first training for sea captains began, is the start of the higher education on Åland. Students, about 600, and the Open University a bit more, up to 2,000 per year. We have 30 teachers, and the administrative staff is almost as many, a little bit more, as to be exactly. A budget of 8.2 million euros per year. A few words about the organization. I couldn't find an image in English, sorry for that, but I lead you through it very quickly. Starting from the top, we have the local government, we have the university board, a rector, of course, a rector's council, which I was a part of working there. We have the manage team, and then we have the faculties with now 8 programs. There are only 7 listed. The newest one is our master program, launched only this year, a master program for energy automation and sustainable engineering. Going through the programs, we have electrotechnical engineering, business management, hospitality management, computer science, machine engineering, health and caring science, and marine management, that is in captains and in maritime logistics. When studying polytechnics, you always can choose between a maritime or a land-based profile. Going to the right, we have the Open University, which was my business, RD and I, and we have the administration. So being a small university in a rural area comes with both pros and cons. I choose to call it opportunities and challenges. And let's be positive and start with the opportunities. We have small classes, normally 20 to 24, often smaller. The standards and the facilities equipments are very good. You can see The laboratories, a picture there, are very much up to date. To the upper right is an image that shows the navigation simulator, but there is also electrotechnical machine labs with a small wind power plant, solar panels, and equipment for small-scale hydrogen fuel making. And of course, healthcare science have their own robot for practicing. Much mentioned about was possible thanks to the European Union's Foundation for Recovery and Resilience due to the pandemic. So it's quite new. I think the university is an attractive project partner. The link will take you to the university website where all projects are listed. I don't think we should go there now because we don't have that time, but you can look it up for yourself. And as I mentioned, the budget has to be considered very good for this small university. And of course, I think management and teachers are very competent. Challenges. Well, as Eva mentioned, attracting students. 50% of our students are from Åland and the rest are from Sweden and Finland. Exchange students can rarely be found in our degree programs, but are more often taking courses during a semester or an academic year. Students after upper secondary school, they tend to study in Sweden, 70% right now, I think, and 30% more or less in Finland. Attracting teaching staff is a challenge because today the labor market can attract staff more because of that they pay better wages. Today it's somewhat unclear about this RDI matter. It's not very clear if it's something that Åland can decide for themselves or it's something that the government of Finland decide. There is no legislation on Åland about this matter, so we have no financing whatsoever, not in regional and not on a national level. Small units, this goes without saying, of course. Above that, most degree programs are polytechnical, so therefore they are up to 70% more expensive than, for instance, the program for business management. And sadly to say, there's a common lack of knowledge about the benefits for higher education, both at the municipal and the governmental authorities. And today we are working towards autonomy. Today, the university is the only in Finland that it's not autonomous. And the education for experts is an area of improvement. The local university legislation only allowed degree programs in Swedish, but this was changed only last year. And today the university can offer one program at least in English, and that's the master program mentioned in the start. I will, because of lack of time, I don't go into these target scenarios. You can look them up for yourself. And I just want to stop by thank you for listening to me. There will probably a possibility to ask some questions at the end. Thank you.
We're in a privileged situation now that we're a bit ahead of time. So I just wanted to comment that it seems like a lot of things have happened just the last 1 or 2, 3 years ago, like a master's program, a distance learning program established. Is there an explanation for that? Why things just happened recently?
Yes, it is, and I would say much is due to this financial from European Union that I mentioned. It was, I think, 2 to 3 million euros. So that's much money for a small university.
Yeah.
Yes, and you are right. It's happening very much now, and it's happening fast.
Yes. So if you have some questions, just post them in chat in Zoom, and we'll also take an opportunity to ask questions in the end of the webinar. And now we would like to welcome Iben Maria Börling from HUSK, Holbæk Education and Study Center in Denmark. Iben works as a senior consultant at HUSK. And Iben, what can you tell us? Can you tell us about HUSK and your approach, and what is it that we can learn from you? The floor is yours.
Thank you for the invitation. And yeah, I will tell you about our experiences in Holbæk and Holbæk municipality. Just a minute.
Stranger.
I'm trying to go to the next slide. Just a little bit about myself. If you feel you can feel free to contact me after the presentation if you want to, and there's also the link to our website. I will tell you a little bit a historic view, because the situation in Holbæk 10 years ago was with many of the same challenges as mentioned by Eva in the beginning of this webinar. We could see that the young people, they would move to larger cities for education. The local university college had closed because of lack of students and the tendency to centralize the educational institutions. And even though that it's possible to commute to educational institutions for some not living in the city of Holbæk, but further out in the periphery, it would be quite demanding, and a lot of young people would not have a higher education if it wasn't for another opportunity. So therefore, we could see that we would have a lack of workforce, especially the schools and hospitals and so on. They would lack staff, and of course, a lesser educated workforce would also lead to an economic challenge for the municipality. So therefore, we had to do something, and the project was born, so to speak. And it was leading to the establishment of HUSK, which is the first of its kind in Denmark, because it was not a common role for the municipality or the municipalities in Denmark to work with higher education. So us focusing on lifelong learning and close cooperation with higher education institutions, that was to move into a totally new area. But we have managed to have a close cooperation with the higher education institutions, and our model is that we are renting out our premises and facilities to educational providers. So we have 2 university colleges in our premises. So what are we? Some of the key functions we have in HUSC are, the closer cooperation with companies. We are building the links between the education and the local employment opportunities, and we are making some tests, and we have made projects about a new kind of e-learning and distance learning opportunity, where more like the Swedish model, where we have few students in Norway, few students another place in the region of Åland, so they together can form a full class of students. And we are also we have these cost-effective facilities for the educational institution, as I said before. So that forms the basis of HUSC. Since we were established, we have 3 educational programs in our campus: the nursing, the finance, and the preschool teacher. And today we have approximately 350 students. And when the preschool teacher education is fully implemented, we will have around 400 students on a daily basis. We have used this model I have here for attracting new educations, and the circles in the middle, they are the base of the analysis needed for the decision making. We have to identify the need for training and new skills to match the local labor market needs. We have to look into which educational institution can offer and will offer the relevant education. We have to have an agreement between the municipality, the businesses, and the educational institutions about which programs should be provided. And then we have to have some data on potential students, and we have to see how to make or how to have a sustainable flow of students. That's quite important. It's not just to establish a program; it's also to have all the students needed. And that makes the basis for the decision and approval. And it's not that just the municipality's decision, it's also, of course, the educational provider, and it's also the ministry that should say, yes, that's a good idea. And then we can plan and start up the new educational program. And I must say also the implementation of this last point is quite important. Our goal is that the programs are successful, that the students complete the programs. So we also have as a task in our little unit in HUSC is also to prevent dropout and facilitate the links to the employers and the local stakeholders. Besides the 3 university college programs, we also support all of the other local students in our municipalities. We have data that says that we have approximately 1,200 students in higher education living in our municipality. So in our house or at our campus, we also have facilities for students studying in other cities. It's open 24 hours a day, and we have quite a good impact. We have had more than 140 students over the years, and the feedback from them is that, well, if it wasn't for our facilities, it would have been quite hard for them to finish their study. So our plans for the future is to still to look into what other initiatives are necessary in Holbæk. We are looking into other kind of educations, and we have this sustained cooperation with the companies and the educational institutions, and we have quite a good communication with local stakeholders, and we are trying to sustain that. And just a small thing, as Eva said, that there's some students that will move to the largest cities no matter what. But we can see from our surveys that about 20% of our students, they respond that if it wasn't for the possibility to study here at HUSK, they wouldn't have enrolled in a higher education at all. So we feel that we are doing something good here for the students and for the community as well. So thank you.
Thank you. It's a very inspiring example from Denmark, and you as a kind of a forerunner in Denmark when it comes to a municipality playing an important role in providing education. Do you know if there are any other municipalities in Denmark now following your example?
Not exactly the same model, but we have a network of other municipalities in Denmark working with higher education. That could be that they would make the city more attractive to students if they have a campus in the city, or they are looking into providing, for example, the study facilities for students at e-learning courses and so on. So there's not the exact same model in any other municipality in Denmark, but we feel quite close to the Swedish study centers, and yeah, we are open for study visits from other municipalities in Denmark.
And just a really quick question about the study programs. Among the 3 new study programs, finance is one of the themes. Do you have any background why it was chosen as one of the programs?
Yeah, it was the banking sector and the real estate sector in our region that needed these competences, and we could see that quite many students went from here either to Copenhagen or to the southern of the region to study. So there was a basis, and actually that is one of the really positive stories, because there's a full class, and actually they had to open another class last year, so there's a need for that.
I see. Well, thank you, Iben. So we'll hear more from you in the end of the webinar when we gather together all the speakers. But now we move on to our last speaker from Norway, Anne Mette. Anne Mette Bjørnvik Rose is a group leader at Nord University, Nesna campus in Norway. So please tell us the story of Nesna. It's a very special story, I think. And where do you stand today? The floor is yours.
Yes, I want my presentation up also, if you can make it.
Yes.
So I'm Anne Mette Rose from Nesna campus. Nord University is a big and long university. You can see it in the map from Stokmarknes in the north to Namsos in the south, and Nesna lies in the middle. We are among 300 students and 37 employers here now. Nord contain 11,000 students and 1,300 employers. So we are a small campus in Nord. Nord University, I'm going to... the campus at Nesna was closed. The board at the Nord University closed the Nesna campus in 2019. This contributed to an uprising in the region. Many were disappointed and disagreed with the decision. You can see the students and some of the people in our municipality outside the campus when it's closed. We are only 750 inhabitants in Nesna. So after a political opposition in the region and among the students and employers, the campus reopened in 2022. This is a long story. I'm not going to tell it. But the process engaged a political engagement, and the regional councils in Helgeland called for an education that provide competence in several subjects in teacher education. They wanted Nesna to go on with their teacher education. They wanted a pedagogical competence in age mixed groups. 7 coastal municipalities approaches the Central Association of Municipalities and wanted an education designed for the districts. And Aino Olaisen from Nova Sea, one of the biggest business here in Helgeland, points out that education breadth is just as important as professional depth. We also have a change of government in 2021. There was a shift in the education policy in Norway that time. The new government saw the need of a more practical and relevant education in teacher training. Teachers who meet need for competence in several subjects, a more vocationally oriented and practical education. I have to go one back. Please, can you help me? The research group, Place-Based Learning and Sustainable Development, here in Nesna, they took the challenge from the political system. They wanted to develop a model which entails several subjects, a didactic approach for 1 to 10, and a more practical training in teacher training. A model based on research-based knowledge. They wrote an application to the Ministry of Knowledge in Norway in the autumn of 2023. Nord University was negative in the beginning. They didn't want to follow up the application. So, political pressure pushed Nord University to face the challenge in the district. So, cooperation between the local schools, the municipality and the educational systems and institutions has led to development of courses for rural schools, not only teacher education. You can see on the picture on the wall that we have some small drawings and other things, but this was a professional day between institution, Nord University and primary school. A teacher from Nesna had in the fall 2024, for a week ago. Nord decided to apply the Ministry of Knowledge for a pilot program for a 5-year master degree in the spring of 23, a board decision. The model is a full-time, flexible, assembly-based education with online support. The education emphasizes practical and aesthetic learning processes, didactics, subjects, relational competence, with a greater breadth of subject than the original teacher education. Students can study from home and have a practical studies in local schools. They also came gathering at campus in physical gatherings. The application was sent in the spring of 2024. At the start of the summer, Nord received a positive response. And this summer has been characterized by accreditation work for startup autumn 25. So this pilot has not started yet, but we are working with it. The pilot 1 to 10. The development work has been going on for several years. Campus Nesna has met with the local schools and municipalities. The dialogue and collaboration between the research group and the professionals in the field created the opportunity to develop a new teacher education. Listening and collaboration have been important in this process. It applies to the students, to schools, education, and the university itself. It has required attention and work over time. And also someone who had to hold in the process over time. So that was the story of our campus.
Thank you so much. It's a really inspiring story from Nesna, and I think it's really difficult to tell it in a short time. But I also know that there have been even a book and a project report published on the whole process, and Jonas has just shared a link to the report. So I think it's a really inspirational source to have a look at. And congratulations that the master's program got approved. Really great results and news. And now we have some time for questions and discussions with the speakers. And we would like to invite, welcome back, Bo, Iben, and Anne-Mette to hear again. And I wonder, Jonas, if we have some questions from the chat.
Yeah, we do. We actually had quite a discussion. However, it was not public. It was only between Bo and one of the participants, Peter. But maybe I can voice the question again, so for everyone to hear. Peter was asking, what is your future scenario concerning distance learning? And that was addressed to Bo. So if you could answer the question again.
Yes, I will open the chat here, so I remember what I answered. There were a lot of questions. Thank you for that. And you were asking about distance learning, no?
Exactly.
Yes. I think I answered something like that. The pandemic was a big leap forward for education and online. You have probably all been there, so I don't need to explain that. But only last week started the first degree program totally online, and the interest was huge, far more than expected. So we are happy for that. Mm-hmm. And I think this is one way to attract and increase students. It has been done in other universities, and I think that's one way to go. So there would be programs that you can choose to study on site or online. So that would be the future for Åland, I think.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. We have another question, which is now addressed to Anne-Mette. As Nova sees one of the biggest employers or companies, have you discussed education within aquaculture as well as why or why not?
Yes, we are planning for aquaculture in the future. One of our high schools in Nesna is opening aquaculture education next year also. And we are also planning to have it in the university.
Do you have more? Or
Yeah, do we have some time? Yes, we do.
one more question?
Yeah, okay. Do you expect, Peter is also asking, I assume that was also to Bo, do you expect a higher number of students by offering programs in English? Also, do you get paid for the university by the student numbers?
Yes, to both questions. Providing degree programs in English would that would mean that we can recruit from other than Swedish-speaking areas. And the budget, one of the how the budget is laid up is that the university gets paid, for example, by the numbers of students applying, and of course when they are getting their a diploma.
Well, if we don't have any more questions at the moment, we don't, or some of them they were answered. I have a question to you about the numbers actually of students. Do you track the numbers of those who graduated from education? How many of them stay in the local area or in the region? So basically, the question is: to what extent do you think peripheral education can help to retain young people in the region? If
Was the question for me or for everybody?
For everybody,
Okay.
for everybody. So, if anyone has an idea, yeah. So the question is like, if you have to keep track of the numbers of stayers and graduates. Doesn't yes? Go ahead.
I can answer for our nurses because almost all of them, that's like 98%, something like that, are employed in our region afterwards. I don't have the numbers for the financial education, and our teachers or preschool teachers, the education just started last summer, so we don't have any of them finished yet. But we can see that the nurses are employed here, and that was one of the main reasons why to start the education. So that's quite good.
Anyone else has any thoughts on this?
Yes, we can also see that the teachers stay in the rural district after education in Nesna.
Okay. Well, just one more question about student attraction. So you've mentioned that it's difficult to attract students, and but I was wondering if you have any examples of successful strategies how to attract students to your campuses. Any specific examples that have worked well? Marketing plans or recruitment strategies?
I could give an example. We are trying to work with students that they can visit their old school and inform the students there about the university, and they can do it online, but we offer them to travel too. And we try to bring as many students as possible to the recruitment events, because I think it's more reliable when a young student are telling other students or presumed students how good the education is, rather than I do it.
Yes. Okay. But so perhaps it's time to wrap up the webinar. Thank you so much to our speakers and the audience for being active and being with us today. And before we say goodbye, I think I'd like to say that we touched upon very different, interesting perspectives. And something that I take with me is that the success in developing attractive places of education seems to a large extent be attributed to an efficient and close collaboration between different actors in the community. And also one important conclusion is that local education initiatives is not just about providing education, it is much more than that. It's about fostering vibrant local development, regional development. And even though we are only talking about small numbers of students and small numbers of graduates, these numbers matter for the local community, for the local tax base, for local employers. And I would like to tell you that we will soon publish EDYNORA policy brief that you will receive from us via email. And also please stay tuned for other updates and publications from the project that will come up during this autumn. And please visit Nordregio website for the upcoming events and publications. And finally, before we say goodbye, there will be a small last Zoom poll for you to answer. And thank you for being with us today.